Trace Trylko, Sons of UCF. 1 year ago, Rich Wallace returned to his alma mater here at UCF to become head coach where he had once played. Heck of a first year, returning the Knights to the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2017. I sat down with head coach Rich Wallace to talk about the past season, what lies ahead for the Knights. All right, Coach, when we scheduled this, I didn't think it would fall on the day that represented the 1 year anniversary of your announcement as head coach. What has this year been like?
Man, it's been a whirlwind coming here and trying to get the roster right and keeping the guys we needed to keep and getting the coaches here and just trying to put in to play kind of what you saw on the field. But it was absolutely unbelievable from start to finish, just coming home and watching those kids represent our program the way we wanted to represent it, and just the overall support from the UCF community and the city of Orlando as a whole.
I went back and watched your opening press conference, and I asked you a question, what would you do to set fan expectations? And there was a chuckle, it's your first press conference.
Yeah.
And you said, I hope we play a brand of baseball that's aggressive, fundamentally sound. Our alumni can look out there and say, I know what's going on. They have a plan, and they're going to execute it, and we'll get this thing rolling sooner rather than later. How does that statement feel a year later?
I mean, when you look at that, could we have played better baseball in certain spots? 1,000%. There's some things we got to clean up. But I think as a whole, we did those things. That was Knights baseball kind of on display at times when we had it rolling. The consistency of it needs to improve. We need to get a little more dynamic on offense, but I think as a whole, the kids did what we asked them to do. And I think most of our fans can say when they left the park that after watching our kids play, like that game meant something to them. The UCF on the front of their chest meant something to them, and they gave it all they got.
When you come in, you have to assemble a staff. What was that whirlwind like, and when did you feel like you'd settled into the position?
Yeah, so, I mean, you kind of filter through some of that before or as it's happening about, who you want and what the possibilities were. And to get Noberto here was obviously huge, not from just the recruiting part, but the baseball coaching part. And then Drew Thomas is an elite pitching coach and teacher. For him to jump on board was unbelievable. And then for Teddy to stay and kind of give us that continuity of the staff, from the players to somebody that they understood and knew that was also learning our system. So like Ted was learning kind of as they were, but it was somebody they knew and trusted. And just once we got through that part, I would say like we started feeling comfortable probably by the end of the fall, right? Like with that staff and what we were doing, and then not coaching together by the end of the year, I felt kind of we were one. Everybody understood what we were doing, and the kids understood it, and it was fun to see at the end.
I was struck during post-game interviews that more than one pitcher mentioned Coach Thomas, and I hadn't necessarily noticed that before in the reference to an assistant coach. What does he bring to your team?
Well, I think it starts with the relationships that he builds with the pitchers. Like from day one, they understood that however great they could be, he was going to try to get it out of them individually because of the relationship, his ability to teach. And then it's one thing to teach certain things, but it's another to like let them be involved in the learning. And those guys are involved in the learning. They understand what's going on. And then you start to see that translate to the practice field. And then when you see some of those guys that at this point of their career had okay careers here at UCF to turn into what they turned into, it's hard not to jump behind that.
When you use the word relationship, that's about trust, right? Earning the trust of players. That's got to be difficult for a player, especially if they had been around a previous coaching staff or they'd come from somewhere else.
Yeah.
They've gotten instruction. Maybe it was good instruction, but now you've got a different set of eyes looking at their situation.
Yeah, and I think like a Dominic Stagliano, I think he had, by the time Coach Thomas, it was his third year in college baseball, and he had 4 pitching coaches.
That's hard.
Right? It's hard on any of us, but for a guy that's trying to do this at this level, to learn this stuff and then be on their 4th pitching coach, you got to be knowledgeable, so the kid has to believe that you understand what's going on, but he also has to feel like you're truly invested in not only what he's doing on the field, but all of it, him as a person. And I think he does a really good job, and it's real. It's not fake. He's involved in everything that they do, and he's a teacher and a role model in a sort.
You mentioned fall ball. When you look back on it, how important was the fall ball to building the team that you had this
Yeah,
spring?
I think all of it. Like we had to change a lot of the things we do from the defensive systems to the offense. Just kind of the way we went about baseball, and it was different. And I think if you ask most of those guys, the practices were different, a little more demanding. That's kind of why we usually in the fall for most programs you go 6 out of 7 days for those weeks. We only went 5 out of 7 because I figured the way that the intensity of our practices they were going to need an extra day off, and it turned out that way. But that fall, I watched that team grow. Where at the beginning of the fall, I was hopeful that we could play a style of baseball. Didn't know if we could do it in time. By the end of the fall, I think we got a shot to play competitive baseball in this league. Not just competitive baseball, but competitive baseball in the Big 12. And it was fun to see.
What's the challenge for a new coach coming in? You've got players from the previous staff, but they're all your players. How do you approach that when you come into a new job?
Well, I think you just first off lay the expectation and the standard of what's going to happen not only on the field but off the field, in the locker room, what it truly means to sign up to play for this program. We kind of set that out from the beginning, and same thing I tell all of our staff: like just be yourself, teach, take care of the kids, be yourself, and the standard is the standard in all that we do. And you kind of started to see that filter on out there. I think the stuff off the field, if it's really good, it filters on the field, and vice versa. And our guys did a really good job of taking care of the stuff off the field, in the classroom. When they walked in that door, everything they did was to attempt to win a championship and have it at a championship level. Can it get better? We all know it can get a lot better, but they attempted to do that at a high level.
Who are you most proud of when you saw in fall ball and then translating it? You mentioned Dom there, taking his game to another level. Who else stands out to you is really taken to a change in coaching and what they learned and trusting in your process?
Yeah, and I think, like, if you look at the returners, obviously both Doms. Dom Castellano, like what he did as well, outstanding. Ben Vespi, from what his junior year was to what he was in the fall to how he progressed to, and that guy pitched on Friday nights in the Big 12 and led our team. And every week that he went out there, the exception of maybe one, he gave us a shot to win. But all of it, he changed the way he hailed runners. He got better at fielding his position, better at the way that he went about his daily work, and he turned himself into a leader. Like I remember Ben Vespi for a long time. And I think Kyle Kramer deciding to stay. Like Kyle, when he came in here, was kind of on the fence whether he wanted to come back, and to see that guy become a captain and do all the things that he did. He's been good here for a long time, but he took it to another level with the leadership part of it. And I think he set the all-time appearance record in the history of the program in a single season. 34 appearances from probably being raised 5'10", 170-pound guy. Like, that's elite stuff.
It's said you're only as good as your senior class. You had a big senior class, a mix of guys that had been here a while, transfers. What will you remember about this senior class in its first season in the Big 12?
The way they handled adversity. Like, it started right away. We were playing pretty well, went to Oklahoma, got swept. And then that group of guys has to come right back and play. I think it was a really good Stetson team here. And they went out and played a really good game. And then they got us on a roll. They got adversity again at West Virginia, found a way to play themselves into the Big 12 tournament. And that doesn't happen without them. We can, as coaches, we can try to lead them as much through that stuff, but there has to be buy-in from the older guys, and it has to come from them. And that group of seniors led this program to where it needed to go.
That series in Oklahoma, it could shake a team's confidence or individual players because you're hyped up for it.
Correct.
And then it doesn't go quite like you expected or per the game plan.
No, and even in that game, like the first game, you go back and look at it, I think we should have won. And then you're shook in a doubleheader in 29 degrees and you don't play very well, and you roll into what was Sunday and get your tail whipped, and you got to get on a plane and deal with all of that. Like that's part of playing in these leagues. I think we talked about it when we talked, like, the margin for error in these leagues is very small between winning a series, losing a series, sweeping and getting swept. And I've seen teams before crumble after that and let it kind of take puts you on a path you don't want to go, and the group of seniors didn't let it happen.
You'll hear coaches say 24-hour rule or till midnight, but that's easier said than done, isn't it? I mean, as you mentioned, you lose a game, you got to fly back, and travel can be somewhat challenging in the Big 12 at times. That's about the character of players, individual players, and a team, right?
Correct. And I think we talk about it as a staff and as a team and as a program. If we're going to do what we need to do, then it's about continuing to get better no matter what. Like throughout the season, can you find ways to get better? And nobody really cares what happened. Like nobody feels sorry for you. It doesn't matter. So what? Get better. And when we came back from Oklahoma, I think we had the Monday off, and we rolled out there for BP, and it was like a practice. Like the energy out of those seniors that they kind of infused into the team was like a practice. And so, okay, we're ready to go. And play Stetson, and then we roll into Wednesday practice, Thursday practice, and you saw what they put out there, that first Big 12 game at home against Oklahoma State in the history of the program. Probably couldn't have played it any better.
Injuries are going to be part of the season. It's part of the adversity you've got to work through.
Correct. How
difficult, though, was it to not have a consistent, healthy Andrew Sundin throughout the season?
Yeah.
I mean, you saw flashes of it. You know what he can do for you offensively.
We saw the flashes in the beginning of the year, and then I told him I'd take a little bit of responsibility. Like he said he was healthy. We all thought he was healthy. I don't know if he was truly healthy when we tried to get him back in there. He was just being a really good teammate and trying to help us. And eventually he found that swing at the end. Like those are some of that looked like Andrew Sundin the last 7 days. Even in the Big 12 tournament when he didn't get hits off the bench, I told the guys, like, it's starting to look closer to truly Andrew Sundin. You saw it at the end. Like, he's a difference maker. There's not too many Sunnies out there that can not only have the ability to hit in the middle of the lineup, but handle the adversity of being the guy that the other team circles. Like, when we play us, like, you're going to circle Andrew Sundin and not let him beat you, and he handles that at another level. And when you put that guy in the lineup, it kind of makes everybody else better. Like, it takes the emphasis off the rest of the guys in the lineup. So not having him consistently for a team that didn't have a ton of power kind of changed the way we had to do things and stuff like that. And I think losing Wiley Hartley, who was emerging into that Sunday role, to give us a little bit of extra there to kind of do that. It kind of puts other people in different roles that they would not be in if he's healthy. And then we lost Alex Gavon early in the year too, which we get him back. I'm excited to have him back, but it was another power reliever in what we thought was turned out to be a really good bullpen, but could have even been better.
In a post game, you mentioned not necessarily trusting a pitcher to say he's good to go, that you have tests and machines.
Oh, yeah.
Could you explain that to me a little? I was kind of curious when you said it, but there wasn't the moment to follow up with it.
Yeah, and Kaylee Shore is our athletic trainer. She's as good of an athletic trainer as I've ever had with that stuff. But there's tests that they do pre and post just to test the strength and the functionality of what's going on in there. And then Coach Thomas is obviously on their daily catch play, kind of what we call like oil checks, just making sure we know where everybody is with that stuff. But if that stuff in the testing doesn't come right, then whether they feel good or not, they're unavailable. And that's kind of where we go. And we try to, like you saw early in the year, like we never used guys in back-to-back days early, figuring that we were going to have to do that at some point. Now, did we use Kyle Kramer a bunch? We sure did. But that's just kind of how we look at the relievers. And he was a 6-year guy that had been through that. Obviously, you treat that guy different than you treat the younger guys.
And you're trying to learn what the guy can do and stretch him out a little bit more. And we saw that with Sosnowski over the course of the year. How much pride do you take in seeing him grow, and you see the confidence on the mound when he goes out there?
Yeah, and that's a guy that battled through a lot of stuff to even get to that point. And then we saw when he came back in the spring, we're like, oh, like Sauce is starting to really pitch, and the stuff is ticking up. And then you kind of spoon-fed him some opportunities, and he just took off. Like, to me, Chris Sosnowski saved the season for us with a bullpen that was kind of wavering at a point there that season, and he gave us a huge shot in the arm. And I mean, what he did the last 6 weeks was that of an elite reliever in any conference.
How do you stay even-keeled? You had the game in the Big 12 tournament, the Cincinnati game. You talked about it as about to be the longest inning of your career.
Yeah, and I think I try to do that just because I'm telling the guys to just keep playing stay composed, play the game at a high level. If I'm freaking out, like, that kind of gives them free rein to freak out too. Even though I got hit in the face with the ball, like, that was literally going to be the worst ninth inning of my life. I told Teddy that in the middle of it. But they need that. I think they need that stability in there and the ability to, hey, coach is okay. Like, sometimes they might freaking out a little bit on the inside. Yeah, we all are. But I owe it to those kids to stay composed and make the right decisions and help them through what they're going through, rather than me feeling emotional.
When you look at what Oklahoma State did in that tournament, how do you measure your team against them? What more do you need to do to be at that level to win a conference
I think
tournament championship?
They were a little more dynamic offensively than us. We got to get a little more dynamic offensively, a little more physical. They're obviously way more physical than us. Pitching, I think we can match up with anybody in the league pitching wise. Like, that's what I felt. Starting pitching and starting pitching depth might be a huge factor and part of that, because you saw what they were able to do with those two lockdown starters and kind of pitch them way into that and still have enough. And then just the overall athleticism. But you're going to ask me that 10 years from now, and I'm going to tell you we need more starting pitching depth. We need a little more physicality, and we need more athleticism, because that's kind of the goal in recruiting every single year.
And advance it to facing Florida State and the teams that were in that great region, right?
Yeah.
Another long inning.
Correct.
You experience. How difficult was that inning? You just never know when it's going to end.
Correct.
It doesn't seem to end.
Yeah, and at that point, like, we had certain bullets that we wanted to shoot out of the bullpen, and if we were going down, we were going down with what we thought was our best guys there, and honestly, they deserve better than that. There were some plays defensively that we had a shot to make that we didn't make. That happens in baseball. Felt bad for those guys. And yeah, that was an inning I'd like to forget, but there's things in there to learn. Like, we had 2 shots to get off the field, and when you don't do that against one of the elite offenses in the country, they only need 3 outs to score. We don't need to give them 5, and that would be the lesson in that part.
Yeah, what do you hope your future team, you're going to have players on this team that were not part of that game,
Correct.
but you want to communicate the message of
and
what you learned from that.
Correct. You're up 2-0 in the 5th inning, and when you look at this and you actually evaluate it, you had plays to get off the field and get into the 6th inning 2-0, and you didn't, and that's what happens. And I thought we were talented enough to make those plays. We just need to make those plays.
You look at the schedule that you built, and then over the course of the season, you play a Stetson, you play a Florida, you play Florida State, right? What did you like about the non-conference schedule that you built, and how does it determine what you're looking ahead to do for the next season?
Yeah, and that's kind of what we're looking at. Obviously, these things are built out in advance and kind of don't have a lot of wiggle room. We have a 4th weekend that we're still trying to put together now, and I'm really trying to put together, because we do have to go to USF, and then we have another road weekend after that in the 5th weekend. So we have to figure out, we obviously need to be at home, but you're trying to figure out to play non-conference championship level teams. Like, we built it going into the season. I thought Bryant would be an NCAA tournament team. They were. Sanford thought was an NCAA tournament team. They won the Southern Conference, lost the tournament final. They didn't get in, but that's an NCAA caliber team. We're going to play USF. That's something that we have going forward. Trying to do that as much as you can in those non-conference weekends to challenge the guys, but also know that we're going to play 10 weeks in one of the best conferences in the country, that you also need to prepare and get that done too, and not wear the guys out in some of those.
League changes again, right? Oklahoma, Texas move on, an influx of new teams. What do you expect from those new programs?
Yeah, the same thing. Like, you're losing Oklahoma and Texas, but you're getting Arizona State, and Utah. And Utah it's going to be a well-coached team that plays a high-caliber baseball. Like, Coach Henderson's an elite college baseball coach. Arizona's going to be Arizona, and Arizona State's going to be Arizona State. And you're adding 3 really quality teams, and every week's going to feel like it did this year. And I think some of the guys, when we talked about it, they didn't quite understand, but I think by week 5 they understood, like, every week it's going to, whatever super regional feels like, that's what it feels like for those guys. And that's what they want. That's what you sign up for when you come here, is to play elite baseball on the weekends, and that's what looking forward to.
The way a team builds a roster is a whole lot different than when you played. How do you approach it? What's the right balance, or does it change year to
I think
year?
balance is probably harder now rather than it was 10 years ago. Like the balance becomes you have to prepare for building somewhat new team every single year. We're either in, out. That's just what college athletics is right now.
Did you hear LSU's coach, his quote talking about it's like a 1 year.
Yeah,
you can't have as much depth, right? Yeah. How much depth, and those guys want to play. I mean, some of these guys just want to play ball, right? Correct. That's what they've done their whole lives.
Yes, and I understand that, and I think that, I mean, it makes complete sense. Like, they want to play. So you're trying to, when you're putting together a team, you're trying to look at, if you want depth, then you probably need to play the depth. And that's kind of what he was kind of alluding to. And creating that and being able to get guys in and out and give them as much opportunity as you can. But our responsibility every day with the lineup, I don't write the lineup. Like, they really do. I'm just trying to put the best mixture of guys out there to help us win the game that day. But every year you're really recruiting 4 or 5 classes at one time and put together on a fly and just try to stick to a target. Just stick to what a night is. Like, they got to do the right things on and off the field. They got to come here wanting to do something that's never been done before, and then fit in our system with athletic, defensive-minded players on the offensive side and elite pitching somehow, one way or another, either bullpen or starting on the other side.
More than 4,000 kids have entered the transfer portal. It's got to be tough to be a high school kid, considering what your options are now.
It is, and it changes, like, the marginal high school players getting left out right now just because of opportunities. There's just not that many opportunities, and when you're picking between a 16-year-old kid that you're unsure about or a guy that's done it before, I get why some teams are going that way. So that, it stinks, to be honest with you. Like, it stinks that you can't just go get the high school guys and develop them and do that as much as you did before, but that's still part of what we're trying to do as a program. We still have to go get elite high school players and put them in the system and develop them.
Fans just see the portal as names coming and going. How difficult is it to have conversations, both maybe you're initiating, but maybe the players coming to you and saying, hey, I'm looking for a different opportunity here. That's got to be a tough conversation across your desk here.
It is, but you try to just be truthful both ways, and at the end of the day, we're just all trying to do what's right for the kid. And you got an 18 to 22-year-old kid that's making decisions not only athletically but educationally, and doing what's right for them and their family. When it all comes down to it, you try not to get, it's hard not to get emotional with some of it, but you're just hoping for the best for the kid.
What are you encouraged about your younger guys? You talk about wanting to win games, right? But you want to give guys playing time. You want to keep guys around for the long haul. What are you encouraged about from the young guys that had opportunities?
Well, I think Andrew Williamson proved that he could play at a high level, and play at a high level in this league. And then I feel bad for Tyler Kozera because he should have been out there earlier, like I said before, but that thing was set up for him. We knew, like, going in that if we could get to that 4th game, that Tyler Kozera deserved to start. He's the future of the program, and that's what we see him doing going forward. And I think we kind of saw that in, you ask a freshman to go into that environment in that game against those guys, and he kind of did what we thought he would do, what we hoped he would do. And to me, that's the springboard for Tyler Kozera into 2025.
At your opening presser, you talked about that if this team is contending or wins a Big 12, that they're most likely going to host a regional, and that you think this team and the fan base would respond to that. You saw what it's like to play at Florida State. You know what it's like to play. What a home field advantage that is in a regional, and that could happen here.
Correct, and that's what the vision of the program is. Like, we took the first step in playing in one of those. Like, that's what we expected to do. That's the standard of what we're doing, but it makes it a whole lot easier if you can have those people yelling for you instead of against you in your own environment. And we've yet to do that as a program, and that's where we need to take that in. When you objectively look at the league, if we're 4 or 5 games better in the league, that's probably what we're talking about doing.
Not to mention you lost games on the schedule, non-conference and conference. Correct. If you had some of those back, that win total's higher as well.
Correct.
In all likelihood.
Yeah, there's really none. We could have, in the conference, we lost a game, like lost 2 opening weekend with the worst storms you could ever imagine. So that's stuff you can't control. To me, when you look at this thing objectively, like, we got to get better in the league, and there's some games out there that we could have won that we just didn't do enough to do, that I think going forward, now that we've been through it, we'll handle it a little better.
You'll hear a player say, going from high school to college, that the game was fast, and then as they get a little older, it slows down. Did you feel that as a manager from day one?
No doubt.
Over the course of the season, that maybe everything slowed down a little bit?
Yeah, for the first month, I told my wife I don't need any coffee. Like, I was ready to go, and that's the first time in my coaching career I needed 0 caffeine to get going. And then I would have said, honestly, opening night was that way for me. But by the time we got to Saturday, I was like, okay, I'm okay now. Like, this is all slowing down for me, just because it's never all been on me before. I've been helping, and it was a fun adjustment for me.
What's something you point to that you saw an improvement, or you think you're better than when you took the job?
I think just handle my emotions during the game, like with the pitching changes and things like that. Like, I was unsure because I'd never done it before. I talked about it. I made my suggestions for 20 years. We planned it before the game and made my suggestions, and just kind of sticking with my gut and exactly what we wanted to do and when we wanted to do it and who we were putting out there and that part of it.
What are the memories that you'll keep with you from having Jay Bergman back, your involvement with Keanu Suarez, and that special moment during senior? What will stay with you?
I mean, all of that for sure. Chance to bring Coach back. Keanu, special kid. Like, he didn't get a lot of acclaim on the field, but what he did in the bullpen, and to get him to get that moment, like, that was special. I'll never forget that. And honestly, we talked about it as a team in the first meeting, that we were going to ask a lot of them as a team. But when they sat upstairs and our name was called on Selection Monday, that they would all do it over again and probably more, just to get that feeling for those guys that had never experienced that before. And just standing in the back of the room and seeing Kyle Kramer and Andrew Gray and Vespi and those seniors that put in the work that deserve to play in the NCAA tournament, and watching that moment for them, I'll never forget.
I thought it was interesting you said, we're not going to have a big watch party. Playing in June should be a part of what this program is. I thought that was interesting that you approached it that way.
Well, and that's kind of the standard of what we said in the first meeting. Like, this program, that's kind of the expectation, both when I was here before and from the whole time I'm going to be here. Like, don't come here if you don't do that, if you don't expect that. And I think they bought into that, and they understood what games, how our schedule laid out, and that every game was really, really important. And there was some big games in there that our guys treated like big games that maybe they didn't before, that were just a Tuesday game on the road somewhere. And I think they attacked every game like it was his own little competition, and knew what it meant when it came time to sitting up in that room and feeling like you deserved to be in. And they attacked it that way.
Back to your opening presser, you opened with, "It feels great to be home."
Yes.
Now you're removed from that. How much greater does it feel to be home?
Unbelievable. Sometimes I pinch myself even driving in here and parking and walking up to this place, because I left this place, man, what would it have been, 16 years ago, not knowing if I'd ever get back. And this meant a lot to me. 2 times I got emotional on the field. 2004 when I was the student assistant here, and we were in the regional, and I knew there was not a spot on me on the staff because couldn't be a student assistant again. Like, I got emotional knowing that, and take that uniform off for the last time, and not knowing if I put it back on, got a chance to put it on again, and then in 2008 not knowing if I'd ever get to put it on again. To come here every day in this building and sit on this side of the desk and put that jersey on every day is very, very special.
Share a dugout with your daughter?
Yes, it's.
How has that adjustment been for your family? What has the year been like for them?
I mean, it's almost a dream come true for all of them. My wife's sitting here, and she's probably a bigger baseball fan than me. I try not to ask her too many questions because she'll really tell me what she thinks. I don't want to know sometimes, but I think for them, just being here with my family in the stands, my mom, cousins, sister, like, I mean, you see it. They're all here at every game. It's a family affair for us, and it's really special.
Got the World Series coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think?
Ooh, man, you can go down that list, and it's all. I mean, to win that thing, it really helps if you win the first 2 games for any of those. Just the way this series is set up. So I think Florida State, if they can win the first 2 games, can make a run through this. Florida seems to be playing as good at baseball as anybody. Tennessee's the number one team. Like that's a hard one to pick. It's going to be somebody from the ACC or the SEC. That's what.
Yes. For UCF fans, what's your message to them over this summer as you get closer to fall ball and preparing your roster? They'll see names come and go, and that transfer portal. They want to be playing now. Knights fans want you to be playing now. You want to be playing now.
So, yeah.
What's your message to them? How far away is this team from those sorts of dreams?
Yeah, I don't think we're very far at all. Obviously, we got to get a little more dynamic offensively. We'll continue to grow the pitching depth through the portal and some of the high school stuff that we've already done. And I'm excited to see the returners a year in the system and seeing how this thing looks this time next year. And hopefully we're having this meeting another week later or having it somewhere else.
A couple weeks later.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you, Coach.
All right, thanks, Trace.
It's going to be a busy summer for Coach Wallace, enjoying time with his family, watching a lot of baseball, and building not only the schedule, but the roster for the upcoming season. Fall ball will be here before we know it. For the Sons of UCF, I'm Trace Trylko.